Hi, I hope everyone is doing well. I want to welcome you to the RA training presentation on the residential curriculum and the community sequencing for our department here in Residence Life. My name is Tyler Gailey. I serve as the Associate Director of Residence Life. In my role, I will be supporting each and every one of your communities as we navigate this upcoming year and the support and the interaction and engagement that we have with each of our residents. In addition to that, amongst the leadership team, I serve as a direct liaison and support person for our towers communities. I'm really excited to get to know and meet all of you. I really wish I could be there in person with you right now to engage in this presentation. But I do look forward to seeing you throughout this week of RA training, as well as even into next week with Move In. Really excited for what this year will be, and really look forward to getting to know each of you. And as we navigate this upcoming year that we have, and really working to create transformational experiences for all of our residents. In this particular presentation, I'm going to give you kind of the big picture overview of where we are as a department. For some of our returners, this is, of course, going to seem similar to years past. For some of our new staff members, some of the concepts may be a little different or new that you may be hearing for the first time. But really, this is intended to start the conversation for what you'll be doing in your halls moving forward. By the time you watch this presentation, either right after or potentially later this week during training, you'll be meeting with your supervisor and your RLS to go over your particular sequencing that will be happening in hall. I'll be referencing that throughout the presentation, but just wanted to make that clear as we get started. At any point, if I can help any of you individually or collectively as a whole, I would love to come and engage with your teams and just share ideas and really work towards how we can best support our students moving into this upcoming year. So let's go ahead and get started. So why the residential curriculum approach? So you're going to hear the term residential curriculum. You're going to hear the terms residential experience. You're going to hear educational plan. You're going to hear community sequencing. And all of this is intended to be ultimately coming down to what is our plan and how we're going to be supporting the residents that will be living in our halls on each of your floors this upcoming year. So why do we have this approach? We have this approach because it allows us to have clearly defined outcomes and goals. I'll talk about those here in just a little bit, but we have three overarching goals that we have in our department, which ultimately trickle down to outcomes that we want students to experience while living in our halls. We want to keep the focus on the individual interaction and those relationships that can be fostered within the community. And that's important, and that happens in a lot of different ways. And all of you that are watching this presentation right now play a major role in helping that come to fruition. Individual strategies are defined by educators. And when I say educators, I mean all of us. Each of you in your roles as RAs, whether you've been in this position for more than one semester or this is brand new to you, as well as for our RLS team, as well as for the rest of our Residence Life department and even stakeholders that we work with in and around campus. This is opportunities for us to create and identify strategies that can be impactful and beneficial to the experiences our students are having while living with us. Our efforts are focused on engagement and learning. We're looking at ways that can we keep our students engaged in the experience, as well as what are they learning outside the classroom. As we all know, all of us are taking classes that are kind of wide-ranging hours in a given week, but no matter how many hours you may be taking or any of our residents may be taking, you are also out of the classroom more than you're in it. So what are those opportunities and ways that we can engage our students to have some of those learning experiences in our halls? If I were to be in person with you right now, I'm even ask you, what are some of those experiences that you can think of? Off the top of my head, very quickly, I'm thinking about just here early in August going in and the roommate agreement process and how that can be a learning experience for our students, especially for many who have never lived with someone else before. Think about getting a lock, a spare key and potentially even a lock change and kind of what that process may entail, going to our front desk and learning how your actions may impact others. You could really sit there and probably make a list of different ways that our students can learn while living in the residence halls. Some that are created and fostered by our work, some that are created and fostered just by the environment that they're in, but really allowing ourselves to focus in on those experiences. trying to meet the diverse needs of our residents. Our residents are coming from all different backgrounds from all over this country, all over the state of West Virginia, and of course, all over the world. And so the opportunity to meet their diverse needs on the individual level, as well as helping, foster that diversity amongst our communities and our buildings as a whole. And then also empowering our residents to have a voice in this process, to let us know what they've experienced, to let us know what they've learned, recognizing every single thing that we do may not be applicable to everyone who is participating or engaging in our programs or strategies and initiatives, and how we can tailor that to meet our students where they're at. Because that's really what this is, coming about and coming from in this presentation. Hopefully, at least kind of gets that wheel turning for all of you as we navigate this. So when we think about students who are coming into WVU, and you look on the screen here, you've got our students who are coming in, and for many of them, they are having many unique experiences while here at WVU. They may be having these experiences in the classroom, but they also are going to be having these experiences outside the classroom. Doesn't mean they're always happening in the residence halls, of course, but we do know, for our students who are living on campus, they are having some very unique experiences in our residence halls, whether they're living in a communal style building to where, potentially the opportunity to engage and meet some others, in our communal style baths, brushing teeth together, sometimes can create experience and conversation that, really can last a long time. In our suite style or apartment style, the opportunity to share space together with other students, the opportunity to foster and build community in a larger setting. And not to mention, the opportunity to go into many of our residential dining facilities and have a meal together, or to go to the rec center, go to the library, be involved in a student organization. Everyone has different unique experiences, and there's not the same experience for any other student that's coming here. And so thinking about all those experiences, and then ultimately our goal of having our students, not only, leaving our residence halls to move on in their studies as upper class students, but also ultimately getting them to graduation and, as you see, positively impacting the world. But in that unique experience dynamic is really where I argue, and I hope all of us feel a part of, we play an intricate role in that experience. And we do so by the intentional work that we have. And when I say intentional, I'm starting from the very fact that all of you are together going through this training with your peers, with your supervisor, to support our students. I say this a lot. Many of you have heard me say this before, but we really believe, I really believe, an intentional residential experience is one of the most transformational experiences a student can have while living on campus. I don't necessarily, from my own experience living on campus years ago, I don't remember every single thing I learned in the classroom, but I can still vividly remember experiences I had living in my residence hall. And if I were to ask you all, there probably are for many experiences that you can remember from your residential life experience, whether it may just be this past year or even in years prior. And so thinking about, not only are these experiences occurring, but what role that we have to help foster and create and engage in an intentional way can really lead to some transformational experiences for our students in the pathway of their college journey, to again, getting them to the direction we want them to be, to ultimately be good citizens and students here at the institution, good citizens within the state of West Virginia, and ultimately good citizens within the global society after they graduate and go on to make that impact in the world. So you never know. I mean, the small things that we do now, the impact that it could have on our students' lives as they continually navigate their college journey for the remainder of their time here at WVU. So in that, what we have is what we call an educational priority. You heard earlier from Dr. Sandana the departmental mission, and she went over the overview of where our department stands. And so this educational priority is really our focus on what are we doing to have that impact for our students that are living on campus. And I'm not necessarily going to read the statement to you, and you also will continually see this as we go through our training. But what we are working towards as a department is creating those dynamic learning experiences where students can explore and connect and achieve not only, particular skill sets, but also kind of learning more about themselves and learning more about how they themselves interact in a larger community, that could really have that impact that we're talking about to go on and be that transformational experiences, not only in our residence halls, but ultimately even when they're outside of our residence halls. So that is the kind of starting off point for where we're coming from. This is the priority. This is what we're working towards. And as you think through that, how do we start trying to reach this priority, this learning statement? We do so through our 3 learning goals. So for pretty much all of our training sessions, for many of our PowerPoint slides, you'll see your supervisors talking about this, and you're also going to see these really embedded in a lot of the work that we do. Is we have 3 learning goals that we say we believe that students living on campus, living on our residence halls, will experience over the next 9.5 to 10 months, and they are intrapersonal development, interpersonal development, and life skills. So when you think intrapersonal development, it's that yourself, the focus on yourself, who you are as an individual, that ultimately is going to impact the interpersonal development, how you interact with others, how you build that community. That could be within, a shared room or a shared suite or shared apartment. Also could be, of course, a part of your floor and that floor identity, and ultimately, your building identity, and of course, being on campus. But beyond that, we also know that we want our students to experience and learn some life skills while living with us in our residence halls. And when I mean life skills, these could be as simple as, opportunities to, how do you make ramen or heat up popcorn in your micro fridge without necessarily setting off a smoke detector? Or if you've never done laundry before coming here and living on campus, how you do that without necessarily, potentially putting in too much detergent. And you probably all could, again, think of many different things that's important for us to teach our students and those life skills component while they're living with us on campus. But these 3 overarching goals are going to be goals that I and your supervisor and others in this department are going to continually be asking you. The things that we're doing, how are we meeting this goal? The program you're putting on, is it meeting one of these 3 goals? The bulletin board or the interaction you're having, where do these goals actually come into play? And the more that we think about it, I can almost assure you, for any idea that we have, it is going to meet one of these 3 goals as we think about focusing in on the student and the resident as an individual, focusing in them on a larger part of the community, and then ultimately the skill sets we want them to learn while they're living with us on campus, both how to navigate and be successful as a college student here at WVU, but also how to navigate and be successful through life experiences that they're going to have, over this next year while they're living with us. And so when you think about it, one of the dynamics of our roles, and I would say this for any of us, no matter the position we have, is really this healthy balance between, are we customer service driven or are we educator experience driven? And to be honest with you, we're going to live in both worlds. We're going to try and find what is that happy medium. What we don't necessarily want to be is that you potentially could be too far rigid on one side, and we're not necessarily navigating and thinking through how that healthy balance may occur. So for example, roommate conflicts are going to occur. There's no doubt about it this year. My hope is, there'll be great opportunities for each of you, and as well as your supervisor, and for us as well as a department, to help our students navigate some difficult conversations and some different difficult challenges they may have, especially for students who have never lived with somebody before. But we also know there's some times where, a student just wants to move. They want to get out of that experience. And there's some times that we need to foster that and facilitate that occurs, especially right away. But there are other times where we may have some opportunities to have some educational moments and teaching moments to help our students through those experiences. And so that's really where we balance are we customer service driven? Are we educator and education driven? And truth be told, in the middle of that, what you see here on the screen are those 3 learning goals. And I believe those 3 learning goals and our educational priority allows us to kind of walk that middle ground, between being proactive versus reactive, but also those opportunities for us to take advantage of some of those teachable moments. Those teachable moments, again, could be as simple as, an opportunity for a student that may learn something that they're held accountable for, while living in the halls. It could be that teachable moment of learning how to put in a maintenance request because something has gone wrong in their room. Or again, a teachable moment may be, I'm trying to advocate for my own wants and needs in my own room experience that maybe I've never had to advocate for before. And so all of you, have an opportunity to help our students through these teachable moments and really taking advantage of those, and recognizing that all of you, whether this is your very first year as an RA or a multi-semester time that you've been with us, you have expertise, you've had lived experience that could also be really beneficial to the experiences our first year students are going to be having while living with us on campus. So all this really leads us to, what do we want our students to experience while they're living on campus? And what we call it is, we call it the roadmap. Some of you have seen this before. And the idea is that learning does not stop when you leave the classroom. What do we want our students to learn while they're living with us in our residence halls? And so when you look at the screen, when you look in the top corner, you see August and you see a focus on community engagement. And what that means is that in our department, in the month of August, the month that we're in right now, our focus is going to be on building community. Building community, of course, can take on many different forms, but the idea is you're new, you're excited, we're coming to WVU, we're coming to, of course, move into our residence hall. But what does it mean to be a part of that community, the WVU community, the residence hall community that you're living on, the floor community that you're a part of? And so really fostering that. That's something we're going to focus on departmentally. You all are going to have a huge hand in this as you think about the bulletin boards that you're designing, to think about the floor meetings that you're going to be leading, the activities and engagement to try and connect our students to things that are occurring around campus. That's really going to lead us into September, where we're going to focus on alcohol education and sexual assault prevention. And we're going to be working with campus stakeholders and partners, to create programming and passive strategies, bulletin boards, flyers, newsletters that we can get out to our residents so that they can continually learn some great educational facts during that time. And as you follow the map, it's going to continually go. In October, we're going to have major exploration. November, a focus on community service. December, for the little bit of time we have, focusing on exam prep and that transition into the winter break holiday. Coming back in January with a support and focus on mental health. February with a focus on diversity. March, a focus on life skills. April, a focus on leadership. And then again in May, a focusing on exam prep. And then ultimately that transition into the summer and transitioning out of our residence halls and residence life. So all of this is going to be the roadmap that we're going to try and take our residents on through the department. Now, you may find in your own residence halls that, yes, we're doing these departmentally, but there may be a particular theme or maybe something you're observing in your halls that you need to focus in on something a little differently, just based on different factors. And that is perfectly okay. And that's something I've talked about with each of your RLSs. If you find that, in the month of October, you need to focus a little bit more on alcohol education, you can. Departmentally, we're going to focus on major exploration, especially as students are taking midterms and maybe thinking about major changes and a lot of different things. But there may be opportunity for you all because you know what the trends are in your building to say, I need to focus in on a particular topic. Or you may say in the spring, you want to reiterate some topic we covered in the fall, because again, it could be beneficial to your residents. What I would encourage for each of you as you navigate this is think about how can you work together as a team? How can you work with your supervisor, your RLS, to really identify what those trends are and what those needs are for your particular communities. I know I've said this word a lot throughout this presentation, but community is very important. No matter what it is that we do, we want to help and foster and build community from the moment our residents are here and throughout the entire year. All community is not necessarily built in one day or in one night. And so the opportunities to think about in your first floor meetings, icebreakers that you're doing and how residents are getting to know one another, thinking about how you're creating that floor identity, not only in those first few weeks in August, but throughout the fall and ultimately into the spring semester. And there's a lot of different ways building community can take place. Again, if we were together, we could talk about some of those opportunities and kind of that pair share ideas. But, I would also throw out there for you, sometimes community takes place even off of your floor. It could be, hey, let's all go and eat together in the dining hall. And again, an opportunity to connect. It could be, let's all go to this program, or maybe some residents on your floor interested in going to the, football game or sporting event together, or just going to get some ice cream, or just sitting outside and enjoying the weather. early in the fall semester. So there's a lot of different ways to think about how you're building community, and recognizing that community doesn't necessarily mean the entire floor. It could be the whole floor, but also, of course, it could be as residents get to know others, not only on their floor, but also across, your entire residence hall building, but also maybe, other buildings across campus as well. Ultimately, our goal is we want to do everything we can in our power to make this large campus feel a lot smaller for many of our students, so that they feel that connection, they feel, at home, and hopefully kind of find their place, whether that be through, academics, student organizations, or just being a member of the Mountaineer community. We also, when you think about building community, we want to allow for personalization. What I've gone over so far in a lot of ways is kind of those broad strokes of what we're going to be doing departmentally. Go back a few slides to the roadmap, and kind of those broad strokes of this month, we're going to focus on this theme. And then the next month, we're going to focus on that theme. But what's not fun in that is that if we all do the exact same thing and we're just very rigid in the work that we're doing, it doesn't necessarily allow for that personalization. It doesn't allow for that personalization that all of you bring to the table, but also doesn't allow for the personalization of our residents who will be moving in and being a part of our community. So keep that in mind, as we navigate this. Each of our themes that we have monthly are very broad. Ideas that you may have for your own floor, your own community, I can almost assure you probably would fit in, within one of those monthly themes. But if you have ideas or suggestions, of course, I'd encourage you to talk to your supervisor, or of course, talk to myself. At any point, if you have an idea or a thought that you think would really be beneficial to your community, no matter what that thought or idea is, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it with your supervisor, talk about it with your peers. I would love to hear it as well. Maybe there's opportunities for us to take some of those ideas and continually broaden it to what we're doing departmentally. But the biggest thing is we want to allow for that personalization. This is intended for us to really get to know, not only each other as a team, but also get to know each other, of the residents who are going to be living on our halls, and recognizing they're all coming from different backgrounds and experiences. That's part of the reason why we all start out with, and I'll talk about it here in just a second, our standard door decks. We don't really know our residents right now, so not knowing our residents, we want to go ahead and start out with that standard door deck, allowing them to introduce themselves a little bit to their floor. But as you get to know them on the floor, that allows you to start creating those fun and engaged and personalized door decks that can be part of the floor identity that you're working towards for the remainder of the fall as well as the spring. And ultimately, when we think about building community, we want to think about ways that we're empowering our residents to be members of that community. It's one thing to live in the community. It's a completely different thing to really be a full member of the community. And how do you take ownership of what that experience may look like? How do you take ownership of, we're all a part of this community and we're all part of it, making sure that we're in a position that, it's an enjoyable experience for everybody. Thinking about ways that we're helping them engage, thinking about ways that we're helping them, really enhance and build off of, the experiences that you're already thinking about. How can the residents continue to play a role in that? Everyone has that sense. So really, think about all of this as we build community. And that ultimately leads to what are some different ways that we do that. And I'm not necessarily going to cover every single strategy that we try and implement in our residence halls, but one that I do want to spend a little bit of time on. You'll get some more information on this throughout this week of training. You're also going to hear, of course, more about this in terms of expectations from your supervisor, but is a focus on intentional interactions. I talked at the very beginning of this presentation that our focus is on, the engaged interaction with each of our residents on an individual basis. Doesn't necessarily mean it's only taking place through a program. In a lot of ways, it takes place through how we build relationships through conversation. And that's really where intentional interactions comes in. On the room packed resources tab, there is a Word document there about intentional interactions for this upcoming academic year. Your supervisor will go over where that's located, as well as to explain even what room packed is, if you've never heard that term before I just said it. But they will go over and show you where that form is in resources, but they will also show you where this form is live in the system for interactions. What this boils down to is that we are asking that every RA has one intentional interaction with each of their residents twice a semester. So when you do the math, that ends up being 4 engaged intentional interactions with each resident by May, 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. Now, your supervisor will go further in depth, and there's further documentation about like what does it mean to have an intentional interaction? What does that look like beyond I passed somebody in the hallway and I said hello, and it was a very short conversation. This is an opportunity for us to learn a lot of different things about these experiences, and also learn, especially for your supervisors, how can we continually tailor and build and engage each of our residents in the residential community that they're a part of. Now, when it comes to intentional interactions, there's probably a lot of questions that may be kind of going through in your mind right now. Don't necessarily have the time to cover that here in this presentation, but if you have anything specific, I, of course, would be happy to address them individually. I would definitely encourage you, especially if this is a new concept, to talk about this with your peers on staff. Of course, talk about it with your supervisor when they go over expectations. And if you run into any issues with it, we'll definitely be happy to talk about it. The biggest thing is that this is not intended to be secretive process. Please, continually have that engaged conversation with your residents, throughout the year of, I want to get to know you. And here are some ways that I'm going to be doing that. That's going to ultimately work towards supporting you and the experiences that you're having while living with us on campus. We also have passive strategies. And so when I talk about passive strategies, what I'm talking about is something that's not an active program. It's not something where they're coming to your floor lounge or they're coming to a large community space in your residence halls to engage together. Sometimes a passive strategy could be the bulletin board that you're putting up on the hallway, or it could be a newsletter that you've created or a flyer. There's a lot of different ways to think about a passive strategy. On one side here on the screen, what you see is a sample door deck. Door deck is a great passive strategy, whether it's the standard door deck that we use departmentally, or even the door decks that you will create, in conjunction with your residents as you build that community and get to know them. The thought is that everything that's on your floor, everything that's part of your building is going into that community building process, even though this could be a passive strategy. For many of you, it also could be some tabling events. You may be in a building or a hall where tabling is really successful, or what you have an idea for a tabling event would be very successful for. Again, that's a great passive strategy, as well as even an active program. You're kind of combining those two, even though there's not necessarily a whole lot else that may be taking place around that. On the other side of this screen here, what you see is what we call a one sheet. You're going to hear this referred to, depending on who you're talking to, a lot of different ways. It could be called a lesson plan, a one sheet, a facilitation guide. Reason I'm highlighting this for you is because everything that we do, the goal is that we have one of these that goes along with it. Your supervisor, if they haven't already, they'll be providing you one sheets for the very first floor bulletin board, so the August bulletin board. They're also going to be providing you one sheets and lesson plans for the first four meetings. So what we do departmentally is we try and map out and write out every single thing that we need you to cover in a four meeting, for example, and then allow your supervisor as well as yourself some time to think about what do you want to cover that's specific to hall or specific to floor, so that when you go into a floor meeting or you go into an interaction or anything else, that you could really have that engaged conversation as a team. So that's really where that's coming from. And again, an opportunity to work together and have that collective information. So no matter what side of campus you're on, no matter what hall you're in, we're all covering the same information with our residents. So if you haven't already seen these, please look to your supervisor. They will be getting you this information very soon. And we will continually utilize these documents throughout the upcoming year. We also have a focus on student leadership. You'll get more information on student leadership throughout the week, as well as, of course, over the next few weeks. Specifically, highlighting here is RHA, but we actually have three leadership organizations within our department. We have RHA, our Residence Hall Association. We have NRHH, our Residence Hall Honorary, and we also have RAC, our RA Council. And so between these three organizations, we have an opportunity in a multitude of different ways to have our residents be engaged, to have you all be engaged, all in support of betterment in the community that we have on campus. Specifically for RHA, we'll be starting, of course, community council recruitment here very soon. We have a new member of the leadership team in our department who's going to be spearheading this. And so you'd be looking for some more information from either Eric Murphy or from your own supervisor on this process. But of course, one of the best ways for you all to be a part of this is to encourage your residents to consider that community community council approach, especially as you get to know your residents early on and somebody shares with you that they're looking to get involved, they're looking for leadership opportunities, they're looking for ways to maybe replicate something they did in high school, or maybe they weren't as involved in high school and this is their opportunity to do something completely different. Sometimes, being a part of RHA, even later down the road, thinking about applying for the RA position, a lot of times it's that shoulder tap of, hey, I would really encourage you to consider this. That could go a long way for many of our students. So just keep that in mind and the role that you have as we think about ways that student leadership can support for us in all of our halls. We're also going to focus in on assessment. So assessment is really going to be, departmental driven. And of course, it's going to trickle down in a lot of different ways. So thinking about, how are we truly understanding the experiences that our students are having and that you all are having this upcoming year. So one of the things that we're going to utilize that we haven't done before, we're going to do some monthly assessment and monthly surveys, very quick tools that we're going to be sending out directly to residents. This will be something to where, we're going to try and bring them together to engage and get some real information in real time that we can maybe turn around and utilize directly. So that'll be something that I'll be working with. And once we kind of have that mapped out, I'll be sharing with each of you to help us promote this with your residents moving forward. We're also going to have, of course, looking at ways that we can better understand what's happening through intentional interactions, what's happening through programs and events that you'll be putting into Impact, and seeing some of the assessment data that's coming from that. Looking at doing some focus groups with our residents, in our halls throughout the upcoming year to better understand the experiences they're having, as well as, working not only myself, but others in our department to really navigate better creating these opportunities to not only hear directly from you all as staff, but also to hear directly from our residents about the experiences that they're having, so that we could potentially make changes in real time versus waiting till the end of the year or even into the summer to make changes for years ahead. So this upcoming August, I really want to focus in on kind of like what's ahead. Where are we at right now? You're taking this training presentation either later on or even into the later in the week. You're going to get some information about what does it specifically look like in your hall. But when we think about August, one of the first things are going to be the door decks. At this time, your supervisors have all the standard door decks. If they haven't already given those to you, you'll be getting to those very shortly. The goal would be is that we get these hung up on the doors, or look to your supervisor for direction on that. The goal will be is not to fill these out for your residents. We want your residents to actually fill these out on their own. But a lot of them, of course, we'll do this on move-in day. As you go around and meet your residents, it'll be a great opportunity to have them fill out their door deck if they haven't already. The door deck here on the screen is not exactly the door deck that you'll have, but for the most part, it's pretty similar. But the goal for these door decks are not to last the entire semester. Honestly, these are really only intended to last for a few weeks. That allows you all and your floor time to really start building and crafting that identity of what does it mean to live on your floor, that could ultimately go to creating some very personalized door decks, whether it's theme-based or even connected to your individual residents that you'll be able to work on, not only for the fall, but the spring. Please look to your supervisors, of course, for direction on that. 4 meetings. So when you think about residents moving in, next week, what we're going to ask you to do, especially early on next week, is just do some daily check-ins. Those are not intended to be a 4 meeting, just some, hearing from your supervisor who's moving in, maybe in the evening, going knocking on the door, introducing yourself. You may be seeing your residents in the hallway, or you may even see them when they're moving in. The opportunity to connect and just really make sure that they know who you are, inviting them to the first 4 meetings. If there's anything that that's happening on campus, or anything that you're even doing, when you have some downtime, inviting them and just having that opportunity for them to starting to feel a little bit more connected once they get into the room. You got to keep in mind, some of our residents may be moving in and the roommate's not moving in for a few days. So, having that chance to, allow them to feel, connection to, other students on the floor, other students in the building, and possibly, of course, getting to know you and your co's and other peers on staff. Thursday and Friday, a move in, we are going to have what we call, quote unquote, a daily floor meeting. You'll have a lesson plan for that from your supervisor, but that is really just an opportunity to bring the floor together, especially those that are moving in on those days, and really just highlight some of the bigger things that we want to make sure our residents know. Those who moved in prior to Thursday and Friday, inviting them to these 4 meetings, of course, it's another way to build our community. And then specifically for floor meeting 1 and floor meeting 2, having those on Saturday and Monday, Now, this will be an opportunity for us to, engage with your floor, engage with your residents before we start participating in the Welcome Week activities. So for Saturday, for example, having a floor meeting and then taking them to a Welcome Week picnic, whereas on Monday, having the floor meeting and then getting ready for, dinner and then ultimately Monday Night Lights. So Welcome Week information will be coming on later on, but just kind of highlighting where our floor meetings are kind of coming together for our students. Bulletin boards, of course, that community engagement. Community engagement is very broad. Just think about welcome to WVU, welcome to the floor, welcome to the community. Think about like what did community mean to you when you were coming to WVU and moving on your floor for the very first time? Please look to peers. There may be some really great ideas. To be honest with you, especially if bulletin boards is something that you're like, I'm trying to think, what do I want to do? Pinterest has a lot of great ideas. Of course, just Googling some different ideas for bulletin boards. Love to see them. And would also encourage you, once you do this, to post it on social media, tag the WVU housing account. We'd love to see these boards, as you get them up and running and really promoting the great work that all of you are doing on your floors. We'll have some university events. Of course, Welcome Week is a major component of August, but as we all know, there'll be different university events that are happening even past Welcome Week, not only in August, but throughout the year. Community council elections, of course, will be a part of this process. Some of you work with living learning communities, and we'll have some living learning community programs and events. QSIs, or what we call quality student interactions. What that means is that it's more than just a program you may be putting on your hall. There's a lot of different ways to think about the interactions that you may be having with your residents, not only on your floor, but also in the actual building complex. So, those will be taking place. Again, look to your supervisors for direction and continual conversation about what that will be in your halls. And then ultimately, we're going to also be doing a little bit more departmental events this year than we've done in previous years. We have plans in the month of August to get residents together and take them up to Pittsburgh and have that. And then also try and have a departmental program every month in the fall, as well as every month in the spring. The biggest role that you'll have in that is trying to get residents, so that they're aware of these events, and obviously encouraging them to sign up if that's something that they want to participate and be a part of. Our departmental sequencing map is what is on your screen right now. I took a snapshot of the larger document. It's a pretty large Excel document. Your supervisors will go over their particular building one. This is not set in stone by any means, so you're going to continually be adding to this throughout the year. I'm going to be adding to it as well, from either departmental or university events and initiatives. What you see here on the screen, though, is something that is really broken down all the way not only to the monthly theme that we're focusing in on, but even down to week by week, what are we doing in our halls? So, from move-in to week 1 to week 2, all the way till the end of the fall semester and ultimately as well into the spring semester. For a lot of you, what this could be really beneficial for is to take this and then take your syllabi when you get those from class and any other personal, due dates or activities that you're aware of, and kind of combine all that together in a schedule so that you'll know, hey, not only do I have maybe a really big exam or a project or a paper that you're working on, but there could also be some things that are happening in the RE position around the same time. So even to a certain degree, it can kind of help you plan ahead. Your supervisors will actually share this document with you here during training. So you'll get to see your own building sequencing document, but that'll also be an opportunity for you to be a part of this as well and providing feedback and information as we navigate this. Again, not set in stone. More will continually be added throughout the year. But even if you look at the screen, you'll see some departmental events that are taking place. You also see, where our intentional interactions fall. You're also going to see floor meetings that are mapped out, throughout the year. Is some of these things are not necessarily driven down all the way to the date that we want you to engage and participate, but it may even be down to the week or even to a couple week time frame. And so that'll be, I hope something that's really helpful for you all as you plan ahead. Expectations that we have departmentally for you all, and this is very broad expectations, and your supervisor, of course, will continually go over specific expectations. But we want you, of course, to assist in things that are happening in the residence hall, management support of our programs, and engagement strategies that we have with our residents. We want you, putting on floor-wide social events and participating in larger curricular activities that may be happening in your building, or even ideas you have on your floor. Going and getting some ice cream cream together, or going and eating together, or going and watching a show together. Those are all great opportunities to build social engagement. And those are things that, I hope are exciting you all coming into this year, especially with opportunities to gather together and be together in person. To have some of these experiences with your residents. And so we want you to do those things. And we want you to also learn as you get to know your residents, things that they're really passionate about, in ways that you can continually incorporate that into your floors. Of course, intentional interactions, like I mentioned earlier, a few slides ago, you'll get more information from your supervisor. There's a great resource document within RoomPack that'll go over that. The form itself is live now. And so as your residents start moving in, and you could definitely go ahead and start submitting these interactions as you have them. For any of our new RAs, I would definitely encourage you, and even RAs that maybe served for the very first time last year, if you didn't do a lot of these in person, pair up with a returner on staff. This could be a great opportunity during training in the evening hours and even into next week with move-in to practice this process. I would encourage you to think about ways that you can have that engagement and really get a little bit more comfortable. Like anything else that we do, the more that we practice, we get more comfortable with it. Intentional actions is definitely one of those things. Participate in the planning and helping carrying out the events in the RLS's plan. So in this particular situation, your RLS is going to lay out their sequencing that they worked on this year, or that they inherited from someone else. And so this is an opportunity for you to provide feedback, ideas, suggestions, but also helping carrying out some ideas that your RLS has. And it could be a program, it could be some other type of a strategy, and really supporting that. And of course, your supervisor will give you more information. Connecting residents to the monthly themes that we have and connecting them to more of the departmental events that we're going to be putting on. And then, of course, also connecting our residents to what's happening at the university. Welcome Week is a great example of this, but as we all know, there's going to be a lot of great things happening at our institution, not only throughout the fall, but in the spring semester. And we want to continually get the word out to our residents about ways that they can participate, be engaged, and even involved, as many of your residents are going to be looking for that connection outside of, not only outside of the classroom, but also outside of the floor that they're living on. So where's the fun? Truth be told, the fun is in hopefully every single thing that we do in this role. I know sometimes in the RA position, it can be very thankless. Sometimes in the RA position, it can feel very administrative or very monotonous. But our goal is that each of you find it enjoyable, find it beneficial and impactful to really build those relationships with your residents on your floor. I hope that's why all of you are here today, is to be a part of that, to be a part, whether it's because somebody impacted you in a previous experience when you were on campus living or in some other facet of your college life. Some of you, of course, have been RAs for us before, so you're coming back, to continually be a part of this experience. We also have to be mindful, and we haven't talked about it yet. For many of our students coming in, the last year and a half has been unlike anything they've ever experienced, let alone what any of us have experienced through the pandemic that we've been going through. And so the opportunities, thinking about that, for many of them, they maybe haven't been around their peers in quite a long time, or they've been doing a lot of things virtually and also a lot of things remotely, and the opportunity to come here and hopefully not only succeed and do well academically, but also succeed and do well outside of the classroom as well. In a lot of ways, starts with how we're engaging and having fun and creating these experiences for our students to partake in. So please throw out your ideas, throw out your suggestions, and let's work together to really foster and create some really unique experiences for our students this year. I am incredibly excited for what this upcoming year is going to have for us. I'm incredibly excited to have you back on campus, and as well as having our residents moving in here within the next week, and really starting to see our campus have that vibrancy and that return to an opportunity to engage together. It's just going to be such an exciting year, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. Ultimately, I always like to end with this particular slide, in that everything that I went over, the questions that I know you probably have right now, because there's probably specific questions that you're thinking about, or how am I going to do this in my hall, or what does it mean being an RA here? Ultimately, you're still doing everything we would want you to do otherwise. We want you to build interactions and engagement with residents. We wanted you to do that even before we incorporated this model. We want you to think about ways to socially engage your floor and to foster and build that community. And we also want you to think about, how you continually have your students feel that connection to the greater, place that it means to be here at West Virginia University. So ultimately, we're not asking you to do radically different things, just asking you to do things radically different. Uh, there are different ways to do different things, and we'll continually navigate that as we go through this, and we'll continually balance that as we think of, really exciting ideas and suggestions. And keep it in mind, this is a brand new year. So any idea, any question, any suggestion is welcomed. Please share it amongst your team, share it amongst with your supervisor, and of course, share it with myself as well. I would really love to hear thoughts or ideas that you may have too. My office is located in Towers. I'm specifically in Bennett Tower, what I call on the garden level, but I guess others may say on the basement level. But I would be more than happy to, meet with any of you in my office. I'd be happy to meet with any of you virtually. I'll also be happy to come and meet with any of you in your own residence halls and your own staff meetings or whatever else it may be to better support you all in the work that you're doing. I really appreciate everything, that you've done so far. I know this is kind of the start to training. It's going to be a great, fun week. But at the same time, this is also a process we're starting that's going to take us for the entire year. So I look forward to working together with each of you, and I look forward to seeing each of you around, as we get ready for our residents to return. And I really appreciate and value the work that each and every one of you not only are already doing, but will continue to do this year in support of your residents. Going back to the beginning, I truly believe that an intentional residential experience is transformational. And I truly believe that intentionality starts with each and every one of you. Thank you all. I'm going to turn it back over to your supervisors for what's next in your schedule. And I hope you have a great 2021 RE training for the remainder of this week. All right. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all very soon.